It's always nice when basically the whole world agrees that a movie is awesome, but some of the most interesting films are in fact those that end up splitting audiences firmly down the middle. It'd be a boring existence if we all had the same opinion on every movie that we watched. But more than any other films in recent times, this lot left audiences squabbling amongst themselves about their perceived merits or lack thereof. These 10 movies simply could not get viewers to agree on whether they were any good or not. And you know what? In a way, we love them for that. Each of them had audiences debating whether the films achieved their goals, and moreover, whether those goals were actually aligned with what the vast majority of people paid their hard-earned cash to see. From bolder-than-bold sequels that did the last thing that fans ever expected, to follow-ups that were perhaps too reverent to what came before, and a few Oscar-courting dramas that took some potentially alienating swings. These movies are without question the most polarising released over the last 12 months. Love them or hate them, these films sure as hell got people talking, so let's talk about them some more. Because I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are the 10 most divisive movies of 2024. Number 10, A Quiet Place Day 1. Being a prequel to A Quiet Place, it was naturally expected that Day 1 would expand the mythology of the sci-fi horror franchise and dig deep into how the alien invasion kicked off. And so, general audiences were left somewhat miffed that the film, written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, who made the awesome movie Pig. If you've not seen it, go and check it out, was instead a more introspective and surprisingly tender, character-driven prequel that had shockingly little interest in firmly explaining much about the aliens and their arrival on Earth. Though Day 1 is certainly plenty suspenseful, it's clear that Sarnowski was far more concerned with crafting an emotional character study rather than shaping the character work around wall-to-wall set pieces. As a result, Day 1 posted by far the lowest audience score of the 3 A Quiet Place movies to date, with some even calling it boring. Even if for many this more restrained approach actually made it the best of the trilogy. A phenomenal, even Oscar-worthy central performance from Lupita Nyong'o sure didn't hurt either. Number 9, Love Lies Bleeding. Rose Glass' second feature, Love Lies Bleeding, was quite unsurprisingly marketed as a sinewy thriller about a couple who get caught up in organised crime. The trailers showed little of the movie's more surreal, reality-bending moments, and certainly didn't tip their hat towards its big third-act reveal, which seemingly shatters the film's grounded sense of reality entirely. If you know, you know, my friends. It's absolutely a make-or-break moment for audiences, who will either immediately get on Glass wavelength and ride it all the way to the finish line, or reject the film wholesale. There's really no in-between. Though Love Lies Bleeding was never going to be a commercial juggernaut, this left-field third-act turn definitely ensured that more conventionally minded moviegoers were left alienated, in turn questioning the veracity of everything they just sat through. For more adventurous and permissive viewers, though, it just made this wild ride even more of a blast. Number 8, Joker Folie 2. No film released this year has endured a more volcanic audience response than Joker Folie 2. I will never get tired of saying that. Todd Phillips' much-anticipated sequel not only made the bold choice to fashion itself as a quasi-musical, but also spent much of its runtime seeming abhorred by the notion that anyone enjoyed the Oscar-winning original at all. So much of Folie 2 is concerned with renouncing the cult of celebrity surrounding Arthur Fleck, both within the movie and outside of it, in a manner that quite unsurprisingly left vast swathes of the original's fans fuming. They were not happy. The sequel absolutely has its vocal defenders, however, who respect Phillips for doing anything but deliver a conventional follow-up, with some even insisting that Folie 2 will be viewed considerably more favourably 10 or 20 years from now. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see about that. But for anyone who expected the sequel to build on the first film's Joker origin story, Phillips did everything within his power to deny them that pleasure. This resulted in a brutal D cinema score, a score lower than both Borderlands and Megalopolis to be clear, and a pitiful box office haul of just $206.4 million, less than 1/5 of what the first film grossed worldwide. Yikes. Right, quick question for you. What movie surprised you the most in cinemas this year, for better or worse? Let me know in the comments right down below. Number 7, Civil War. Alex Garland's Civil War was marketed as an intense dystopian action thriller in which the United States descends into full-blown civil war. It's right there in the title. Yet anyone expecting a relentlessly action-packed slice of escapism was likely left underwhelmed by Garland's more cerebral, character-driven approach. While there absolutely is action throughout the film, it's far from Garland's primary concern here. Certainly not before crafting a tense and thoughtful road trip character piece. And this is all without even getting into Civil War's politics, or some might say lack thereof. Now, Civil War is clearly a political movie, though Garland declines to provide much specificity regarding the nature of the war itself, the perceived goodness of the sides fighting it, and so on. Some consequently accused Garland of creative cowardice by refusing to present clearly drawn political sides, while others lauded the ambiguous stance for ditching ham-handed political posturing entirely. It's tough to argue with the performances from Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, and Kaylee Spaney either way. They're all tremendous here, even if Garland's approach ultimately left a lot of people cold. Number 6, Gladiator II. Gladiator II is a classic, not as bad as you feared, not as good as you hoped kind of movie. An entertainingly bombastic spectacle that nevertheless falls far short of Ridley Scott's Best Picture-winning original. Some saw it as a worthy follow-up as long as you set your expectations appropriately going in, yet others found it excessively derivative of its predecessor, while feeling that Paul Mescal was miscast in the lead role. Like, I absolutely loved him in Normal People, but I was a bit disappointed by his work here, I'll be honest. The B cinema score, down from the first film's A, suggests it's not quite the fist-pumping crowd-pleaser that its predecessor was, and for some it evidently feels like a too little too late sequel that continues Ridley Scott's run of mediocre late-career epics. Love it, hate it, or fall somewhere in the middle, most will agree that Gladiator II will not have nearly the same cultural cachet as the original. 20 years from now, how fondly are people really going to be talking about it, if they even are at all? Are you enjoying this video today? Well, there is more where that came from if you hit that subscribe button right down below, my friend. It only takes a second, and it's a second well spent. Number 5, Heretic. Pretty much everyone agrees that A24's new horror film, Heretic, features terrific performances from Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. And most will accept that the movie's first half is gut-wrenchingly tense. Yet, Heretic's second half is decidedly more schismatic, taking several narrative left turns which ended up leaving many viewers frustrated, hence the middling C+ cinema score it received. Like so many films, Heretic is so much more effective when we don't know what's going on. But eventually, filmmakers Scott Beck and Brian Woods of course have to drop the veil and clue the audience in on what is up. It's at this point that the film becomes a more divisive affair. You'll either be totally on board with what Beck and Woods are up to, or probably bounce off it all the way to the much debated ending. An A24 horror film leaving casual audiences dumbfounded isn't exactly the most surprising outcome though. Blumhouse this ain't, people. Number 4, Alien Romulus. Though Alien Romulus was the best reviewed Alien film in decades, the response from the series' die-hard fanbase was decidedly more mixed, and this ultimately comes down to how content folks were with the film being a fairly shameless, unambitious grab bag of the series' greatest hits, albeit a technically glossy and well-acted one. For Alien fans desperate to see the franchise try something new though, this was pretty underwhelming, and even many who mostly enjoyed Romulus still found the member berries and general nostalgia baiting a little much by the end, especially when that classic Aliens line is invoked at a critical moment. I audibly sighed. It is a basic assembly Alien movie that's doing precious little new, while leaning far too keenly on the series' greatest successes, even if it is an entertaining enough romp while you're watching it, regardless. Such is the recipe for the third Alien movie in a row to sharply split fans right down the middle, even if Romulus was certainly less contentious than either Prometheus or Alien Covenant. I personally enjoy both of those movies for the record. Number 3, Amelia Perez. Jacques Audiard's new film, Amelia Perez, is certainly one of the most unique and attention-grabbing films of 2024. But does that actually make it any good? Though wildly feted on the festival circuit and generally praised by critics, the general audience response once it landed on Netflix has proven far more mixed. There are a few factors to consider here. To some, the songs are catchy and instantly iconic, while to others, they only serve to distract from the film's dramatic intent. And the film's trans representation has been a major source of discussion on social media since its Netflix bow, some seeing it as a step forward to present a flawed trans protagonist, while others found various aspects of Amelia's depiction problematic. It certainly made for a spirited discourse, even if for every person swept up by Audiard's energetic spectacle, there are many questioning the worthiness of the execution. Number 2, Long Legs. Longleg's astonishing marketing campaign did a fantastic job of selling it as an extremely moody and unnerving take on Silence of the Lambs. Though the reality is that Osgood Perkins' horror thriller is considerably less approachable to general audiences than the trailers implied. Most will agree that Longleg's sheer vibes are impeccable from start to finish, and they're pretty tough to shake off once you leave the theatre. While complemented by superb performances from Micah Monroe, Nicolas Cage, and Alicia Witt. But for every one person enamored by Longlegs as a scintillating mood piece, there's someone who felt shortchanged by the film's third act, which is simultaneously packed to the gills with exposition, and yet still ends on an elliptical note that abjectly denies the viewer closure. It's certainly a vibes first, plot second kind of movie any way you slice it, which for some made Longlegs a totally refreshing horror effort, while others came away finding it too opaque for its own good, hence its so-so C+ cinema score. Number 1. Conclave. Edward Berger's new drama Conclave has earned rave reviews from most critics, and is widely expected to be nominated for a bevy of Oscars next year, especially Best Picture and Best Actor for Ralph Fiennes. The dramatic thriller centered around the process through which a new pope is elected when the prior one dies has proven somewhat more contentious with general audiences though, enough that it landed a mere B+ cinema score, a fairly soft grade for one of the year's most buzzy prestige releases. As for why Conclave is proving polarising, well, it all comes down to that shocking third act twist, which we won't spoil here as the movie has only just been released. Needless to say, the big reveal is a surprise that catches just about everybody off guard, and some audiences, especially the religiously inclined, one might speculate, may have found it off-putting. Again, just speculation. For others though, it was a brilliantly executed reveal that puts a bold, provocative cherry on top of a superbly crafted piece of work. Now continue your YouTube journey with What Culture by clicking on one of these definitely not divisive videos right here. You will not regret it.